Admiya sisters and brothers, Sada Supreme Namaskar. Today we've gathered here to review and deepen our concept of social outlook, social construct, one might say, democracy. And I've been asked, since the theme is responsible democracy for all, during this World Hindu Congress, talk about this topic. Let me just have a comparative view taken between our star work that we've got in the past few days about Swami Vivekananda and the renowned political scientists such as Van Kenderen and this will give us some insight into the topic. Let me share some of my analysis. Of course, nowadays, everyone is a Democrat. Those who oppose democracy are looked at suspiciously and have to explain the reasons for their position. Democracy is generally accepted as the least undesirable of all regimes, all forms, all known forms. Despite its broad support, it is felt by many that democracy is in trouble and does not function satisfactorily. This, in my opinion, is just an area of differences based on the influence of the history, culture, and economic developments of individual nations. Former older democracies, as those of France and the Netherlands, to newly established democracies on different continents, to again the continent of the older Western European democracies, where a new regime emerged, the European Union, of which the constituent national states are deemed to be democratic, while the institutions of the Union itself, in many respects, may not be. The idea that it all goes well is if we are democracy turned out not to be true. What went wrong? Should democracy as an ideal be abolished? Or did we treat it with too much carelessness and over-enthusiasm? What can be learned from all this? In our search to find answers to these questions, and I hope that by this discussion or the thinking that we can find answers to these questions. In this search, we should always remind ourselves, I think, of three very important facts when considering how democracy is experienced and can it be saved for its betterment. The first fact is that history and research tells us that democracy can have resilience, and that democracy's resilience can be found in its ability to renew itself in such a way that the core values of freedom and right of say of citizens are maintained. The second fact is a firm acknowledgement that even in democracy, constraint is here to stay. As Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote in his analysis of democracy about the citizen who is forced to be free, for say d'être libre. In a democracy, there is the freedom to form a majority that is established by law, and then also the minority, who in its freedom did not succeed in becoming a majority, is bound to it. Here there is no question of choice anymore, but constraint. This aspect of force or constrainment is important to acknowledge, even in democracy. That it is there and it is here to stay, but the way in which this constraint or force is established or amended makes all the difference between acceptable and unacceptable, legitimate and illegitimate regimes. And the third fact, and I think in our context of our World Hindu Congress, ultimately democracy by itself is a social construct the construct of government, one might say. But in the end, our conscience that has to be made. It is our conscience that has to be made itself a guide. And that much is to be relearned from our rishis of yore. That what we Hindus call dharma is of the essence and must be made again the guiding principles for all. Like he said, Narna Dharmi Yahu, Dharmo Dharayate Praja. Dharma sustains the society. Dharma sustains the society, and Dharma maintains the social order. That is when we understand and accept that certain basic scientific guiding principles are in existence regarding the human conduct and social discipline, having that interrelation even with the universe. Then when we understand, then only we understand that all human actions, whether of a king, a politician, or even a beggar, must be guided by those principles. And let's be clear, the principles are not limited to religious principles connected with realization of God, but they are quite mundane, meant to systematize worldly life and through that to elevate the world towards godliness. And that only by giving can be done, by giving predominance to dharma and not to the state. Hence, in our Hindu view, state is a political concept, and a nation is a cultural concept, and seen as a living organism. Only by giving predominance to dharma above any construct of governance will we be able to achieve happiness to all, protection to all, welfare to all, and unhappiness and misery to none. Much work has been done in this area, and praise to the thinkers and philosophers and projects of Katma Manav Darshan, known as empirical humanism, thinkers and philosophers of administration in the light of the practical Vedanta, and many others of our own, whom have done extensive research and publishing of the integrated politics where the fusion of governments with the guiding principles par excellence known as dharma are realized. The fusion contains concepts such as purusharth, the concept of the leader, ruler or politician being a Rajarishi, socio-spiritual evolution referred to as Akhanda Mandalakara Rachana, the nation above the state view, the Sadhya Sadhan Vivek, and the stance of Vritya, meaning that leaders and politicians pledge to act as servants of their people. When we say, Teen Bhrata Rajana Prajanam Yogya Kshema Mahavaha, that after describing the share of the king, Manu puts the burden on him of feeding the society as he was a servant. These and many more invaluable insights and irreplaceable practices are worthwhile mentioning. It is for us as politicians, as leaders, to bring those into practice through our development plans, national policies, and in that spirit of our thinking, and that the spirit of our thinking may be felt in our interactions with our bilateral and multilateral partners. This can also be extended, of course, to our collaborative efforts to enable South-South, North-South, and triangular cooperation that we have as nations with other nations. It is out of this hope that I think we should give democracy a chance, based on our own individual national experiences. But in the light of the fact that our theme of the political conference, Responsible Democracy for All, we can state that the full attainment of real democracy is a process which is not based on a one-size-fits-all principle. And thus our challenge lies in making democracy responsible and making it work for all. This forms an important basis for our deliberations here today. As Swami Vivekananda would say, know your past, out of the past is built the future. Look back, therefore, as far as you can. Drink deep of the eternal fountains that are behind. And then, after that, look forward, march forward. It is my sincere hope that our gathering here today will lead to us looking into the modus operandi of our political world, and that we might pave a pathway towards betterment of democracy, and thus betterment of the world and all in it, just like the stones were engraved with Shri Ram's name in the land. Even so, the elements of democracy, said words, institutions, constructs, are imbued with the timeless principles and lessons of yore, then we may build the Ram Setu towards a new achievement of a responsible democracy for all. Let us think collectively on this and act vigilantly. Sumantrite, Suvikranti, and
Thank you so much, Vice President Adin. Last time at the last conference, you were not a Vice President. This time you are Vice President. The next conference, we hope the Vice word gets out and it's President. So thank you so much for those wonderful words. We will just finish up the quick introduction and then we'll hand it to our panel chair. And I'm hoping the Vice President can be here, get engaged in the discussion. We have some fantastic panelists. And just a few words about our panelists. I was introducing Shri Ravindra Devji, and I apologize, Ravindra Devji, I couldn't finish yours. But he's a former MP and columnist in Guyana, has been now an Hindu activist for 27 years. He formed the ROAR, the Rights Organizer People Guyana movement. So he's been very, very active in HHS in Guyana. And I have a friend again from 4 years ago who's now visiting from South Africa, Shrimati Santosh, Kalyan, who I had the privilege again of meeting at that conference. She's a Shadow Deputy Minister for International Relations and Cooperation of South Africa. She's a Democratic Alliance member of Parliament's National Assembly, currently serving as the Shadow Deputy Minister. And she's also a member of the Pan-African Parliament. And has been an MP since 1999. That's a long time, politics. And then finally, not the least, is Shri Chandresh Sharma. He's a former minister and member of Parliament, Trinidad and Tobago. And he became a member of Parliament in 1991 and has won 7 general elections from the United National Congress. And he served in the opposition, he served in the ruling member, and he's been in government in several ministries. With that, I'll turn it over to our chairperson of the panel, Shri Jagdishwar.
Shri Arvind Adin, coordinator, Hindu political conference, Vice President of Suriname, and we have Shri Ravindra Dev, former MP and columnist, and Srimati Santosh Kalyan from South Africa, member of the National Assembly of South Africa, and Sri Chandresh Sharma, former minister, member of Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Keeping protocol, distinguished personality, सभी को नमस्कार और प्रणाम। स्वीकार करें। अभी मैं 2 सप्ताह पहले मैं मॉरिशस से आया। आपका सुषमा स्वराज जी, 3 मिनिस्टर है सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट में, स्टेट और सिंह जी और आजाद, तीनों मिनिस्टर वहाँ पर थे फॉरेन अफेयर्स का, मॉरिशस में, छोटा देश में, अफ्रीका में। और वहाँ पर विश्व हिंदी सम्मेलन, हम लोगों का जो भाषा है, जैसे राष्ट्र भाषा बोलते हैं हिंदी, मातृभाषा तो सवन है, सवन हजारन हो गए, लेकिन वो कॉन्फ्रेंस में कम से कम 2000 लोग आए थे दुनिया भर के, सिर्फ हिंदू नहीं, दूसरे कौम के लोग थे जो हिंदी प्रेमी है, उन लोग के सम्मान भी हुआ। और वहाँ पर सभी करीब सभी भाषा का प्राइम मिनिस्टर, प्रेसिडेंट, फॉर्मर प्राइम मिनिस्टर, जगन्नाथ, सभी हिंदी में बोले, बहुत अच्छा लगा। और मैं सोचा यहाँ पर आऊँगा कि विश्व हिंदू कांग्रेस, वर्ल्ड हिंदू कांग्रेस में, यहाँ पर भी हिंदू का है, भारत का हिंदू धर्म से माना जाता है, मेजॉरिटी पॉपुलेशन, संस्कृति हिंदू संस्कृति है, कि यहाँ पर मैं भी आकर भोजपुरी हिंदी में बोलूँ, लेकिन मैं ठीक है, लेकिन यहाँ पर देखा कि सभी है, मुझे इंग्लिश में बोलना पड़ेगा थोड़ा, क्योंकि सभी लोग हिंदी नहीं बोल सकते, नहीं समझ सकते। शर्म की बात है और दुख की बात है कि हम लोग का स्वतंत्र देश का कितना साल हुआ, भारत का, मॉरिशस का, फिजी, ट्रिनिडाड टोबागो, सुरीनाम, साउथ अफ्रीका का 50-60 साल से ज्यादा हुआ। फिर भी आज हम लोग जो अपना भाषा नहीं, जो पराया भाषा है, जो खराब भाषा है, उसको अपनाकर उसी को अपना दिया नेशनल भाषा। न्याय चलेगा यदि हम लोग चाहते हैं अपना, इसमें है reasserting a strong Hindu political voice, और इन गिरमिट कंट्रीज, गिरमिट में वो भी अंग्रेजी शब्द रख दिया, यानी हम लोग प्रवासी भारत देंगे एग्रीमेंट करके, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट जो बोलते हैं अभी, अब इंग्लिश शब्द डाल देते हैं, एग्रीमेंट को खराब करके गिरमिट क्या बना दिया। इतनी शर्म के बाद, दुख की बात है। और हम लोग प्रवासी भारतीय, अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी जब प्राइम मिनिस्टर है, हम लोगों को पीपल ऑफ इंडियन ओरिजिन, इंडियन ओरिजिन है 20 साल से। उसके बाद में मोदी जी जब आए, प्राइम मिनिस्टर जब है, ये मैं सोचता हूँ कि ये कलयुग का प्राइम मिनिस्टर नहीं, सतयुग का प्राइम मिनिस्टर। तो हम लोगों को जो 30 करोड़ है, 3 करोड़ दुनिया भर में, 30 मिलियन प्रवासी भारतीय, हम लोगों को सिटीजन ऑफ इंडिया बना दिया ओवरसीज। मैं सिटीजन ऑफ इंडिया, बोलो आई एम सिटीजन ऑफ इंडिया, मेरा हक होता है जैसे सभी भारतीय का है। इससे बड़ा काम क्या हो सकता है? पुस्तक में 2500 साल पहले वेद में वासुदेव कुटुंबकम, दुनिया हम लोग का परिवार है, हम लोग तो अपना खून क्या है, भारतीय, हिंदू, मुसलमान, तमिल, कोई भी हो, ये अपना नहीं करेंगे तो ये छोटी बात नहीं है, ये गौरव की बात। आज मोदी जी सिर्फ प्राइम मिनिस्टर भारत के नहीं है, और भारत सिर्फ भारतीय के लिए नहीं है, भारत जो अपना हिंदू धर्म है विश्व के लिए है। और मोदी जी सिर्फ भारत का प्राइम मिनिस्टर नहीं है, मेरा भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर, मैं अफ्रीकन हूँ, मैं जन्म अफ्रीका में हुआ, लेकिन मेरा प्राइम मिनिस्टर पिताजी पहले प्राइम मिनिस्टर 40 साल काम किया उनके साथ जब वो प्राइम मिनिस्टर है, अभी उसका बेटा है, अभी मैं हाई कमिश्नर हूँ। और हम लोग बोलने चाहते हैं कि आज देखो कितने अच्छा काम हो रहा है, पॉलिसी डिसीजन, तो राजनीति के पॉलिसी होता है। और अपना धर्म जो हिंदू धर्म है, राजनीतिक, सामाजिक, सांस्कृतिक, शिक्षा को अलग नहीं कर सकते। जैसे ओम तमेव माता चरिता बोलते हैं, तो हिंदी में बोलेंगे आप मेरी माता जी, आप मेरे पिताजी, भोजपुरी में बोलेंगे तो हमारे माँ हुआ, तुम्हारे बाप होगा, क्या में बोलेंगे संस्कृत। तो छोरी ही से जन्म से बच्चे को संस्कृत सिखाना अलग नहीं कर सकते। वो सबसे उत्तम भाषा, सबसे पुण्य भाषा है। यूरोप में सब भाषा संस्कृत से बना है, संस्कृत से लेकर। बोलने का मेरा मतलब है कि आप लोग आए यहाँ पर, बहुत अच्छा दुनिया भर के लोग आए। मैं अब तो डिप्लोमेट में हूँ, राजनीति के बारे में ज़्यादा नहीं बोल सकता हूँ, लेकिन जो असलियत तो बोलना है, जो सच है वही गांधी जो बोल रहे हैं, ट्रूथ इज गॉड, गॉड इज ट्रूथ, वो सच्चाई है। और पहली बार इतिहास में भारत का हुआ, हम लोगों को जो 30 मिलियन प्रवासी भारतीय है, ये मोदी जी जनवरी में 21 तारीख से 24 तारीख तक सभी को निमंत्रण था इंटरनेट में, 30 मिलियन का बोलो, सभी को इन्वाइट किया है तीर्थ यात्रा के लिए, प्रवासी भारतीय तीर्थ यात्रा, पिलग्रिमेज टू इंडिया, पहली बार इतिहास में 250 साल के बाद। और वही नहीं, कुंभ स्नान है, हाँ प्रयाग सबसे पवित्र जगह, वहां से मिलकर दिल्ली में आओ, सभी को 10-15 कितने हजार आएंगे, सभी को प्राइम मिनिस्टर निमंत्रण दिया कि पार्टिसिपेट इन द रिपब्लिक ऑफ इंडिया। ये मामूली बात नहीं है, मैं जानता हूँ, मैं करीब 40 साल से आता जाता हूँ भारत, कभी किसी को ऐसा इनविटेशन कभी नहीं मिला पब्लिक। ये देखो सभी को बुलाया, ये साधारण बात नहीं है। और मैं चाहूंगा कि आप लोग जितने हो सके आओ। पहली बार गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया सब्सिडाइज है, मोर देन 50%, खाना पीना रहने का सब, कम से कम 3-4 हजार कमरा बना रहे हैं, सिर्फ 4 दिन के लिए हम लोग को रहने के लिए। बनारस सबसे पवित्र जगह काश्मीर, बोलो वहां से गंगा स्नान और रिपब्लिक, ये है, सभी का निमंत्रण है। इंटरनेट, मैं उसका मार्केटिंग नहीं कर रहा हूँ, मेरा धर्म होता है, इसमें मानता हूँ। आज आप लोग मुझे बुलाए, हिंदू नाम से मैं आया हूँ यहाँ पर। आज मैं छुट्टी लेकर आया, मैं छुट्टी लेकर आया, भाई कमिश्नर बन करके नहीं, छुट्टी लेकर आया, आई एम ऑन माय हॉलिडे, अपना समझकर। और ये पुस्तक मैं थोड़ा दिया हूँ क्योंकि इतना पढ़ना मुश्किल होगा। अभी अपना 3 कोलीग है जो पॉलिटिशियन है, मिनिस्टर है, तो उसके बारे में मैं ज़्यादा नहीं बोलूँगा। अब मुझे 2 मिनट बोल रहा बोलने का, तो ठीक है, ये तो आदत हो गया है आपका, राजनीति कर रहा हूँ। तो ऐसा है कि मैं ये बोलूँगा कि brothers and sisters, to borrow these 2 famous words, ये स्वामी विवेकानंद बोले यहाँ पर सबसे फेमस होता है। I am very grateful to the organizers and dignitaries who have found me capable to be invited to the Delhi speech in the World Hindu Conference, Congress जो है held in this Gogia space. Today my speech will be pointed out. ऐसा विचार था सिर्फ माय के बारे में बोलने का, मेरा एक्सपोजर था कि तुलसीदास जी का भाषा में बोलूं, लेकिन इंग्लिश में बोलना पड़ेगा। People say that we should be modern and hardly care for the basic knowledge which is found at hand. We have been looking something else for far from us. True modernization is freedom of mind, जो Ravindra Tagore बोले, not slavery of taste. It is independence of thought and action. Many of us forget one very simple word which we utter in our daily life without paying any attention of that simple word, and that word is mother. माता, माँ। और आज मैं भाइयों बहनों, मैं 6 तरह की माँ जो पूजा करते हैं भारत में, उसके बारे में थोड़ा संक्षेप। ये पढ़ूंगा तो बहुत समय लगेगा, लेकिन 6 माँ जो माँ हम लोगों को जन्म दिया, मदर्स वाज गिवन बर्थ हम लोगों को, कि कितनी मेहनत करके, कितनी कठिन करके होती है। और उसके बाद अपना संस्कृति सभ्यता में है कि उन लोगों को अपने परिवार के साथ रहे, जॉइंट फैमिली। इस दुनिया में पहाड़ लिख करके क्या करते हैं हम लोग, अलग अलग करते हैं अपना संस्कृति से। अपना धर्म होता है कि परिवार के साथ रहे, ये एक माँ है। दूसरी माँ है अपना धरती माँ। धरती माँ से सबसे बड़ा अन्याय हुआ दुनिया, भारत में भी और दुनिया में। और इसी कारण सबसे ज्यादा एपिडेमिक प्रोपोर्शन नॉन कम्युनिकेबल डिजीज, डायबिटीज, हाइपरटेंशन, कार्डियक कैंसर, सभी परिवार में कैंसर है, क्योंकि हम लोग कैंसरस खाना देते हैं। जो खाना खाते हैं वेजिटेबल सब कैंसरस, बिलियंस एंड बिलियंस ऑफ रुपीज ऑफ केमिकल्स, पेस्टिसाइड, इंसेक्टिसाइड और ऑर्गेनिक हाउस इज मोर डेंजरस। अब तो ऑर्गेनिक कैसे डेंजरस हो सकता है? आपके जेब में से पैसा निकालते हैं, दुकान में जाओ ऑर्गेनिक का नाम लेकर दुगना दाम पे करते हो, चोरी करते हो। अच्छा होना चाहिए, कि बोलने का ये असली है। तीसरी माई है अपना गौ माता। गौ माता बोलते हैं, अपना धर्म होता है गौ माता को रक्षा करना, अच्छी तरह से देखना, और गौ ही माता से बरकत होगा। मोदी जी अपना स्पीच में बजट में बोला कि गौ का मूत्र और गाय का गोबर से आप पैसे कमा सकते, लाखपति बन सकते, मोदी जी बोला, और सच है। भारत में ऐसा टेक्निकल है, इतना साइंस है, इतना रिसर्च हुआ है कि जीरो बजट नेचुरल फार्मिंग द बेस्ट टेक्निक्स किसानों के लिए, जीरो बजट। तो आप बोल रहे हैं, ये बारे में मेरा धर्म है बोलने का कि मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ आप लोगों को कि ये करना है, जब झूठी खराब चीज क्यों करें। जब हिंदू धर्म बोलते हैं, मानते हैं कि अपना ताकत दो, तो ये बोलना चाहिए। और चौथा है अपनी मातृभाषा। मातृभाषा खुशी के बाद होता है, गुजराती परिवार है या कोई तामिल या सभी कहीं पर भी जाते हैं, भारत छोड़कर अपनी मातृभाषा को भूलते नहीं। घर में परिवार में खाना पीना सब रखते हैं, ये मातृभाषा को आवश्यकता है। सबसे उत्तम भाषा होते है सिर्फ इंसान का मातृभाषा। और आप सभी का पहचान कैसे होता है? सिर्फ डिग्री से नहीं, BMW कार से नहीं, बड़ी बड़ी मकान से नहीं, अपनी पहचान होता है अपनी मातृभाषा से। और मातृ भाषा से आपका संस्कृति होता है, नहीं तो जानवर से बेहतर होता है इंसान जब आपका संस्कृति पता नहीं। और अपनी मातृभाषा को रक्षा करना है, जब माँ का इज्जत दी तो और क्या कर सकते। मैं बोल सकता हूँ आपको, क्योंकि मैं अपने देश में मातृभाषा को मान्यता दिया। यहाँ शर्माते हैं भोजपुरी भाषा को, तो सबसे पुराना भाषा रामायण का भाषा संस्कृति क्या है भोजपुरी, महाभारत का संस्कृति क्या है भोजपुरी, जो इतना पुराना भाषा है, इतनी लड़ना झूमर, इतनी गीत, इतना चीज है, अभी तक मान्यता नहीं मिला है, तो मिलना चाहिए। और मैं चाहता हूँ दुनिया भर में हो, फिजी हो, ट्रिनिडाद टोबागो, सुरीनाम, साउथ अफ्रीका, ज्यादा से ज्यादा भोजपुरिया गया, यूपी बिहार के, और वो भाषा को मान्यता मिलाना है। वो मेरा धर्म है, मैं करूँगा। हिंदू का नाते बोलते हैं अपना माही का रक्षा नहीं करते, क्या रक्षा कर रहे बोलो, और वही से पहचान होता है। आज मॉरिशस सबसे छोटा देश अफ्रीका में और सबसे बेस्ट 50 देश में नंबर 1 डेमोक्रेसी में, शिक्षा दे सकते हैं, इकोनॉमी, सोशल, सामाजिक सभी क्षेत्रों में मॉरिशस है। इसी कारण हम बोल सकते हैं। मैं भी 40 साल काम किया, अपना गरीब देश था, $300 पर कैपिटा था। आज हम लोगों का कम से कम $10,000 पर कैपिटा है अफ्रीका में नंबर 1 जो किया। और यही हिंदू मेजॉरिटी है, हिंदू का राज है। हिंदू जब वहां पर ऐसा कर सकता है तो भारत में क्यों नहीं, फिजी, ट्रिनिडाद टोबागो में क्यों नहीं। तो मैं इसके बारे में ज्यादा नहीं बोलूंगा, क्योंकि रोकड़ा इतना दूर से आए, कम से कम 10-15 मिनट बोलने का बोलते हैं, रुकावट करने का क्या करें। फिर भी दूसरा बात है अपना भारत माता। भारत माता बोलते हैं, भारत माता के बारे में तो पुस्तक में लिखा, मैं ज्यादा नहीं बोलूंगा कि उसको पूजा करते हैं भारत माता को, जिसे सभी भगवान को पूजा करते हैं। और अंत में है गंगा माँ, गंगा माई। गंगा माई को क्यों पूजा करते हैं? गंगा माई आज करोड़ रुपया भारत का गवर्नमेंट खर्च कर रहे हैं आपका गंगा को साफ करने के लिए, क्योंकि यही अपना धर्म है। लाइफ विदाउट वाटर देयर इज नो लाइफ, जीवन ही नहीं है। यह गंगा साफ खराब रहे। और गंगा सिर्फ भारत का नदी नहीं, दुनिया भर का नदी, कहीं पर भी हो आपका विचार हो ग्लोबल थिंकिंग, लेकिन काम करना है लोकल थिंकिंग। जो असली है समस्या देश में ये करने का। ये संक्षेप में मैं थोड़ा 6 माह के बारे में बोला, ऐसे तो बहुत डिटेल है इसके बारे में। इसमें मेरा ईमेल है, मैं दिल्ली में हाई कमिश्नर हूँ, और मेरा फोन है, मोबाइल फोन, मैं डायरेक्ट आप फोन कर सकते हो। मैं जानता हूँ डिप्लोमेट लोग अपना मोबाइल नहीं देते, मैं समाज सेवा को कभी भी मैं स्वास्थ्य मंत्री रहा दुनिया भर में 6-7 साल, जरा से नारा मेरा तोड़ी गया। और जब स्वास्थ्य मंत्री रहा तो मौका मिला काम करने का, और दुगना किया कम्युनिटी हेल्थ, 1 सेंट बजट से नहीं लिया। हाईटेक मशीन, ओपन सर्जरी, न्यूरो सर्जरी सब फ्री मॉरिशस में। बोलो इस अच्छा सेवा क्या हो सकता है? मॉरिशस को ऐसा बनाया सिर्फ शिक्षा के लिए, अधिक क्षेत्र में सिर्फ एजुकेशन का, प्री प्राइमरी से यूनिवर्सिटी तक फ्री, आज बेस्ट आज के सिंगापुर या इंग्लैंड से कंपेयर कर सकते हैं। और सिर्फ वही नहीं, सभी बच्चों का स्कूल जाने का भी ट्रांसपोर्ट फ्री। बोलो, और आप अगर बच्चे को स्कूल नहीं भेजेंगे तो आप एक साइड कहीं भी जा सकते हैं, प्रिजन जा सकते हो। ये है मॉरिशस। जब हिंदू वहाँ पर ऐसा काम कर सकता है तो दुनिया भर क्यों पीछे रहे? अब अपना धर्म है करने का, तो ऐसा तो बहुत है करने का। आप लोगों को मौका मिलेगा क्वेश्चन करने का आंसर। फिर भी मैं तो अपना नंबर सब दीजिए, कभी भी हो अच्छा लगे तो ईमेल कर सकते हो, टेलीफोन पे बात कर सकते हो। और मेरा धर्म है यदि आपका इसी देश में इस तरफ आने का, सेवा करने का, आपकी मातृभाषा को उसको इज्जत देने का, जैसे मैं मॉरिशस में किया, तो यहाँ पर बैठा रखते, चिंता मत करें। ओम शांति शांति।
Thank you very much. That was very, very inspirational. I do want to add a couple of housekeeping notes because we are trying to make sure that everything stays on time. We have a wonderful friend of ours who's got the worst job in the world of pointing out time to our speakers. They're all very, very important, and we are hoping that people will get a chance, but she's going to point out 3 and 2 and 0 minutes, so please. And the other thing is, please, in respect for our speakers, keep your phones on mute. That's a very, very important thing. With that, welcome our next speaker, Shri Ravindra, please.
Sisters and brothers of America. I've always wanted to say that since I was a boy after the community, but I'll say it again then, that sisters and brothers of America and 59 other countries from where we Hindus have gathered to deliberate on possibly our future. I've been tasked to address a specific topic, challenges faced in building a united political front between Caribbean Hindus and the Hindu diaspora at large. So let me point out from the very beginning that while the word challenge may have a negative connotation, it also, all challenges present opportunities, and in that sense can be seen as very positive because it provides, as I said, opportunities for change. That's what challenges can do. And that's how we Hindus ought to look at the challenges that face this unity that is being asked for between the Caribbean Hindus and the Hindu diaspora. Now, we can identify several of these challenges simply by juxtaposing some of the key terms in the title of the topic that was given to me: political, Hindu, united diaspora. Let's juxtapose them. So in the time allocated to me with mine on the eye, I'll talk about 2 of them. But even in those 2, it should suggest the enormity of the task we are undertaking at this conference here. And I just want to make this very specific. It is not just a time for backslapping and feel-good statements. I think we need to look very harshly at the environment that we are confronted with and to analyze those environments, and then from within what we have, how could we confront those challenges. Now, the first one would be political and Hindu, the political Hindu. Now, right up front, I want to say that this, when we talk about political Hindu, this presents the challenge of, quote-unquote, mixing politics with religion. This, we have to confront this, because even though Gandhi would have said that he who says that religion shouldn't have politics doesn't know religion or doesn't know politics, but it is rather trite to point out that Hindu, the word Hindu has been defined by our interlocutors, those who conquered us and defined us and tried to box us in, so that even today, amongst we who practice Hinduism, we see it as a religion. We see it as a religion. And in this milieu that we operate in, this so-called modern world into which all of us have been conscripted, so to speak, whether we like it or not, religion and politics aren't supposed to mix. So right off the bat, in, for example, Guyana, where I'm from, where we have been reduced from a majority of 51% in 1981 to a minority of 39.5%, just as Fiji has in the last few decades. To say a Hindu should represent a Hindu position in politics is to be condemned, because you're not supposed to mix Hindu or religion and politics. The irony, of course, is that the whole Western liberal order that gave us this thing called democracy comes out of Christianity, which was quote-unquote secularized in what they call the Enlightenment of the 17th and 18th century. So when we talk about the liberal order, notions of equality and all those things, we are really talking about Christian notions that have been secularized and will clash inevitably with Hindu notions of what equality may mean. And we should consider that. Just don't use these terms. They have meanings and they carry a baggage and they carry all of their history. So when we are pushed into supposedly neutral institutions, so-called neutral institutions, be they political, social, cultural, or economic, they have an agenda. They have an agenda that we will have to confront. The other irony, of course, is that we don't really have and practice a religion. We have heard so many speakers elaborate all morning that we don't practice a religion, we practice dharma, Sanatan dharma, which is not a religion, which has a text and a prophet. Let me say, go out of this room and even speak to our fellow Hindus. The distinction is lost upon them, much less those who control the institutions of power. Therefore, again, I come back to where I start, that to talk about a political Hindu, at least I'm talking about the Caribbean. I'm talking about Mauritius, where there's maybe a large Indian or Hindu majority, I'm not so sure. I will speak about the Caribbean, where we all held to play. For what it's worth, I spent 2 decades in New York, and when I went back to the Caribbean, I formed a party, the first party that called itself explicitly Indian Party, after Indians were beaten in the streets of Guyana, like dogs and no one spoke. I formed an Indian party to represent those interests. And was condemned even to today by whom? By mostly your own people. How dare you call yourself Indian? You're supposed to be this universal being floating about in space. And that is the reality, much as if you call yourself Hindu. So again, I want to talk a bit about this notion. Well, what do we do? Because we can't be silent. How do we address this challenge? I believe, as I said, there's an opportunity. We are at a historic junction where the time is ripe for a challenge by those of us who practice, I use the word practice, Sanatan Dharma. The liberal political project of democracy, which came out of that European Enlightenment from Christian theocracy, is in crisis. Because of the contradictions have been exposed by the demands of the values of the same democracy. Witness Brexit in Europe. Witness what is happening in this country here. All of the norms of democracy will be shaken up, because for the first time, those who universalized European Enlightenment values are now becoming a minority, and they are being threatened. And now that they are being threatened, all of the premises that they had, and they will tell you, it's now going to change. So you have constituencies that never saw themselves as ethnic, but they now become ethnic, but they'll be a minority. So for the first time, you're going to have Enlightenment values as ethnic values. We were condemned for having ethnic values, and we hit our heads and say, oh, we should only worship in private, we should talk our little story in private. It ain't going to happen anymore. And this presents us now with presenting with a new vision to replace the crisis, the economic crisis, the crash of 2008. The world hasn't recovered yet. China's resurgence and what their civilizational ethos. We are, from practitioners of Sanatana Dharma, we have an opportunity to now put our wares on the table. because all the premises are now going to be questioned. Take my word for it. In this country, a fellow by the name of W.E.B. Du Bois said in the 20th century will be the politics of the color line. Well, the politics of the 21st century will be the politics of the civilizational line. But this challenge was addressed, that's the irony of it, 50 years ago in Bharat itself by a practitioner of Sanatan Dharma. And our Vice President referred to him as Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay. I call him Rishi Deen Dayal Upadhyay. The man was a Rishi because in 1965, in 4 simple lectures at Mumbai, he surveyed all of what we speak about, the Western Enlightenment and all his ideological projects. He critiqued, of course, the Nehruvian acceptance of those premises, never trying what our civilization had produced. And he predicted that they will come to their demise. Because he pointed out the contextual nature of historical institutions. And I don't want to go into detail, but you cannot take an institution, let's say democracy, one man, one vote, from a particular milieu. You can't take secularism from a milieu in where the state was fighting the church for dominance. India never had that. The greatest Raja had to come down and greet the Rishi when the Rishi entered the room. We never had that. But yet we have foisted that on us. Every detail we can come. But again, Rishi Deen Dayal Upadhyay has in 4 simple lectures, not more than maybe 45 pages of typewritten pages, and is there. And he wasn't any dogmatist like I hear many Hindus do. We're the greatest this, and we invented everything, and we had planes flying in the air and atomic bombs. No. He said very clearly, all institutions are contextual, and if they are historical, then they are contingent. They are dependent on circumstances. So he said, let us examine what Europe has produced. They might have some utility for us to work and so on. Let us even examine what our own rishis have produced. Maybe some of that may need to be questioned. But let us not just discard it as our own people have done. Let us combine them based on what we know as Desh, Kal, or Parishti, based on the place, the time, and the circumstance. That is what we have to do. It's there in a very simple way. So, he questioned these Enlightenment prejudices, which is this text called Integral Humanism, or Manav Darshana, which is, and this is the essential insight. It's based on our ancient insight that, in a Christian term, man cannot be sustained by bread alone. In the Chaturveda Purushartha of Kama, Artha, Dharma, and Moksha, all must be given due emphasis in any undertaking at every level of society. The West has defined us as economic man, right? Homo economicus. So all of us, whether we are Marxists or not, make the market be the arbiter of what we should do. Oh, let the market decide. The market is even deciding morality today. We take opinion polls, and that's how we make decisions. Never work about the people, but if we follow that of what the human is, integral humanism, not just the economic aspect, that is just artha. What about calm? Let us not pretend that some of our actions aren't coming out of our desires, our physical desires. They are. Take them into consideration when you have to inform policies. Take artha. We all need status. We all need to be somebody, as Jesse Jackson once said. I am somebody. So let us take that into consideration. But yes, we want moksha, but it must be guided by dharma. And dharma is what we should focus our eyes on. The principles of dharma are eternal, but let us then contextualize it and apply it. So from the standpoint of fulfilling the imperatives of democracy, which is what the macro theme of this conference is, Deen Dayal's thesis showed that the procedural aspect of democracy, the ballot, one man, one vote, is hollow, is very hollow. You just give the man a vote. When the substantive aspect is neglected because the development of the integral man, the development is ignored. So the notion of the principles of dharma guiding the physical needs, karma, and the physiological needs, artha, of man towards his ultimate fulfillment, moksha, can be the basis of the Hindu secularization of politics for the 21st enlightenment, new enlightenment, that we can now be teachers of the universe rather than the chela. But it must be based on, and I don't want to be critical, but most Hindu leaders, and I will not call names at the highest level, are simply repeating the same neoliberal fundamentalism that has gotten the rest of the world into crisis. And we now have 20 million millionaires. So what if you have 20 million millionaires? What about the poor? What about their needs? I'll stop there. So such a truly universal philosophy could bring together the entire diaspora in the movement to impart our vision of Sanatana Dharma to the world. The word modernity, which has been expropriated by the European Enlightenment, would now be surpassed by not only a postmodern worldview, but ultimately a Sanatana worldview, an eternal worldview that we can then pass on to the world. And that could be our contribution. Okay? The second, I said I thought the two things. How can you unite the diaspora help? Well, the word, when you juxtapose united and diaspora, the challenge of internal Hindu differences arise. And this is a dirty little secret that all of us try to hide. That how we talk about this, Vasudeva, Kutumbakam and all of that, yet we are the most divided society on Samaj on earth, whether in India or here. And I'll talk very frankly as a person outside of India whose grandfather left Ishmaelpur in near Guyana in 1888, fifth generation Indian out of India, that you are feel to be second class in certain crowds. You're not feel to be that you're not a real Indian. Let's be honest about it. You're not a real Hindu, right? I can't speak Hindi. We've lost that in Guyana and Trinidad. We can't speak it, but we are no less devoted to the precepts of Sanatana Dharma. I know my time is up. I just want to finish with, I think, an important point. That how do we get them to think that the word diaspora signals another challenge. The word diaspora comes from the Jewish experience, where they were thrown out of Israel and went to Babylon. And as a Caribbean man with roots in the Caribbean, the blacks of the Caribbean, some of them the Rastafarians, see themselves as the Jews. And there's a famous song, I sat by the rivers of Babylon, and I cried as I sat by the rivers of Babylon. Right? I can sing it if you want. All the time. Rasta, reggae music. But the point is that that's part of being in a diaspora. You long for the country. But I'll tell you something. My kids don't long to return to India. There's no return. We are in here. And you who have just come as first generation in America will confront that sooner or later. What does it mean? We can't just dismiss that. You're not a real Indian. We have to be have that unity. And I'll just talk a little bit basically that basically we left India in different waves, and each wave created new ways of being Hindus, right? For example, in Guyana we don't have caste. There's no Chamar or any other caste. We're all one. There's no region. We don't have North or South or Gujarati or Tamil. You're all one. Yet that is not seen as something positive. Somehow, where are you from? I don't know. Bihar of 1888, I'm not sure what it was. So I've brought to the end of my piece here, that the way to go about this is that we have to begin to practice what the religion says, which is to practice true unity and diversity. That we are the only civilization on earth. The West starts with the premise of e pluribus unum, out of many one. We start in the Rig Veda, we say Egoham Bahusyam. That the Creator Himself said, I am one, let there be many. So we start from the premise of differences and diversity. And the task of us in running any society is to accommodate diversity, not to obliterate it and destroy it. cultures. And that can be our contribution if we begin to think that. I end on one quick note in one sentence, that we heard so many people from great industrial background and so on. So how do you create this unity? One theorist of Western nation building, fellow named Anderson, says, he called it, the nation was what is called an imagined community. That the people of a nation, Britain, who ruled India as a British nation, most British people never really met each other, but they were imagined themselves to be one nation. Do you think Lord Halifax ever met a big fella from the Liverpool Docks? He never met them, but they were all British. The imagined nation, we can imagine ourselves. It has to be a construct in a way. Can be, there's now, we have called it obliteration of differences, the death of distances. Technology, modern transportation, we can now use technology to spread our message to each other. I'll end with this last one, which is that Anderson showed that the very act of reading a newspaper every morning, the same newspaper, if you read the Times of London, it could be the peasant in Cornwall, or the Lord in House of Lords. They're reading the same paper, they develop a commonality of view. We Hindus need a television that straddles the world to show our races. I thank them. I really take
Thank you for those wonderful remarks. Very, very appropriate for people who live in America like me. As we have kids, and they lose their Indianness or culture, so we appreciate that. And we'd love to get our next speaker, Srimati Santosh Kalyanji, to give her remarks. As we have indicated, we have 15 minutes and we have a timer. The reason for that is because we have a lot of time for the audience which really wants to talk to you. That's the key. We kept a lot of time for the audience interaction, and they will really get into discussion, and that's the whole thing.
Namaste, everybody. I cannot tell you how amazing it is to be in this community or gathering of Indians. And I'll qualify that in my remarks in a few minutes. It's indeed an honor and a privilege to be able to address you. And the topic that I'm talking about today is the challenges faced by Hindu politicians in South Africa. So, as you've heard, I'm a member of Parliament in the National Assembly of South Africa, and I've been there 19 years. I will complete 4 terms in May next year. And I'm of the official opposition, the Democratic Alliance. I'm the only Indian woman MP for my party in the National Assembly. So, when I was given this topic, I thought to myself and I said, so how does one address the challenges of a politician who is Hindu but is single in their party? And then I thought, let me do an analysis of the ruling party, which is the African National Congress. And they have only one Hindu male in their ranks. And he's a minister, his name is Minister Ravindra. So you would see just from the numbers game that we are small. And I was talking to someone at breakfast today, and she said, what's the population of Indians in South Africa? And I said, well, we supposedly have the second largest, the largest population of Indians outside of India in South Africa. But we're small enough to be ignored and not acknowledged, but big enough to feel the pain, if you get what I'm saying. So it's a kind of this morning's ceremony was so amazing. It was like, gee, I'm a politician and I've been a politician for so many years. I'm also a member of parliament in the Pan-African Parliament. And without blowing my trumpet, I'm the only MP from my party to be what is called a double MP. So the Pan-African Parliament is a parliament of 54 African countries. And apart from the delegates from Mauritius, I'm the only other Indian delegate in that 54 country. So sometimes it's about battling for identity. But I can tell you, I'm proudly Hindu. The constitution of my country is a very good constitution. It is a sound constitution. It acknowledges freedom of expression, expression of cultural, linguistic, and religious rights. And there are 11 official languages, but unfortunately Hindi is not one of them. So in my own small way, I will always greet everybody, from the president to the person, the cleaner, with namaste. To a point now that when a speech starts, and if I'm sitting there, they will say namaste like that. So that's something in my own way that I'm saying, I'm taking a stand. My language is not an official language, it's not taught in the schools, but if you say it enough times, repetition sticks and it stays in your memory. Sir, Mr. Vice President, I'm a Liberal Democrat, totally. And I believe strongly in the rule of law and the rights of the individual. The theme of this conference, Think Collectively and Achieve Valiantly, could actually have not been more appropriate to the struggle of Indians in South Africa, many of whom arrived in South Africa as indentured laborers and cane cutters. In order to survive, not knowing the language or the ways of their colonial masters, these laborers were forced to come together as a collective to ensure that they did not lose their cultural identities and that they would survive. When their indentured labor contracts came to an end, they were given either a passage back home to India or given the equivalent in money. Many chose not to do the trip again in the Kalapani because so many had died, and they opted to take the money and achieved valiantly to become farmers, landowners, businessmen, and women. So as I said, South Africa has one of the largest Indian populations outside of India. In fact, it is sometimes dubbed Little India. Apartheid is still a very sensitive topic, and the question that we will have to ask is, have we made progress since the dawn of democracy in 1994? I would think not. We are still a young democracy, and while in the apartheid era we were classified as Indian, colored, white, and African, and now we choose to say we South African, unfortunately the label or the race label still stays. So the indentured laborers came, they made their marks. Unfortunately, they lost some of their Indian identity, and that was not as a result of betrayal to their culture. It was as a result of the white man being too irritated and lazy to get the right spelling of the name. So Muni Swami became Moon Swami. Oh, that's the moon. Okay, moon. And you know, they distorted the names, but unfortunately that was what the documents said, and you had to live with it. Post-apartheid, it is indeed sad that very few people of Indian origin take up national office. I gave you the statistics. The current situation in South Africa, and as again I was talking to somebody at the breakfast table today, and they said, oh, they heard things are bad, the land is getting dread, things are volatile. Now, colleagues, yes, it is a process that is going on in our country. It's called a public discourse about expropriating land. Black people, we are a population of 52 million in our country. 2 million, under 2 million are Indian. 1 million maybe colors. and maybe 3 million whites. The rest are Africans. And when I said to you in the beginning, I'm so happy to be amongst Indians, it's because the majority of the population is black. The language that is spoken would be English or Zulu or Xhosa. You're sitting in a minibus doing an oversight visit to a clinic or whatever. You know, the person speaking English. So you sometimes feel at a loss, you know. So that's why I said I would qualify the state. Unfortunately, there is a political party. It's a minor opposition party. If you watch South African politics, these people are always dressed in red. And they have now started to come out. We're going for an election next year. They started to come out to say, all Indians are racist. You must go back to India. I'm a 4th generation Indian. Where in India will I go back to? But this is inciting hatred. It's inciting other black people to view Indians because they're successful, because they built schools and mandis and educated themselves and empowered themselves instead of burning things down. This is now to incite racism and to incite the challenges that I think I had to ask, one of the questions, the challenges that we face as Hindus in South Africa. There's no direct funding from government for any of our projects. Everything, whether you're building a school, a mandi, whether you're giving Hindi classes, whatever, all has to be subsidized by the private community. Hindi is not taught in schools. When I was growing up, it used to be taught. We would have teachers who taught us Hindi. There's 2 reasons for this. One is the take-up has been very poor because of westernization, modernization, whatever term you want to use. And the other one would be we don't have enough qualified people. There's a huge dependency in Durban, that's the country where I live, the city where I live, dependency on the Indian High Commissioner's office. They run the cultural programs, Diwali program, Holi program, you name it, yoga, whatever. So we have this dependence on them to do it. And it's so wonderful to attend it, but the initiative in the community is not very good. It is sad indeed that we don't have maybe a branch of the World Hindu Association in South Africa where we would get literature. We starve for literature. And I know that it's easy to find it on the internet. Like I said, Anupam Kher was speaking and he spoke about his book and I said, I haven't heard of that. I quickly wrote it down to make a note that I should get hold of it. But if information like that was more forthcoming, literature, the hard paper. I was talking to a journalist this morning who said he writes a monthly newspaper and he wanted to do some interviews. And I thought it would be so great, that we would actually have newspapers or tabloids to cover news related to Hinduism. The resurgence or the renaissance of Hinduism must reach Africa. The voice is not being heard. And I look and hope that something will come out of recommendations here that we will be able to do something. Just quickly, the community radio station, again funded privately. Our national broadcaster, we have a station called Lotus FM. The former President Zuma, appointed one of his cronies to head up this body, the SABC, and in his stupidity or wisdom, whichever, he decided that all music that should be played on Lotus FM would be of local content. It was an absolute disaster. We don't have talent in our country. People recording CDs in their garages and then playing it on the radio. It was a disaster. Revenue went in advertising, what. One of the things that I took up as a member of parliament was petitions, protesting outside SABC, calling on the community to sign the petitions and to bring back Indian music, which we did. And also very glad to say that the fool has been dismissed. I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Srimati Kalyan ji, for those wonderful remarks. a real view into South Africa for people who have not visited, and especially into their politics. With that, we'll have a panel speaker come in, Shri Chandresh.
Thank you very much, Manji. Sit down, everybody. So, I come from Trinidad and Tobago. You say that too. You say Jagdishwar. Is the only female scholar who's present in this country. So, it's going to be a conversation where we share some ideas. And when we listen to all the speakers, what came out very clear is responsibility of self. When that is practiced, that's the highest level. Whatever here reflects politics at its best. The youngest vice president of the world. I myself want to share with you, because the intention is that you too can do a little bit more than you're doing now. And you're doing a lot. The fact that you are here means you're doing a lot. The fact that you are here suggests that you are discharging a responsibility for yourself in the first instance, and maybe for many generations to come. Mr. Vice President, big motivation. So what has that now? That's critical. That's how we develop nations. We don't develop nations in science labs. That helps you to look nice. But we develop nations by developing the self. That is Hindu Dharma at its very best. So I take you back to Trinidad and Tobago. In 1990, there was a coup, an attempt to overthrow the government by a very small Islamic group. The president of the country, the prime minister of the country, was shot. One member of parliament died. I was the first Hindu voice that went on radio and said, this is not right. But that didn't make sense, it is not right. Everybody knew it was not right. But because the country had to go into curfew state, we had to find resources to assist the police officers who had to work 24/7, or maybe 6-7 days, and the doctors and the nurses and all the essential services. So I gathered a group of people, and we started to move around with police permission to deliver food stuff and medical supplies and what have you. And soon after that, listening to Swamiji's message in 1893, Arise and Awake, many of us went into that movement. Then I started with a small little group, and we formalized and became the Hindu Institute of Trinidad and Tobago. All of this in 1990, and we started to do dharmic work, go out to the communities and share dharma, which is for free. Bhagavad Gita is a great knowledge. Almost everything is there. Almost everything. In fact, in the global community today, one of the literature that is referred more and more by policymakers and thinkers is the Hindu text, because it seems to answer a lot of questions, which I will share in a minute. This small group of more than 12 people hosted the first World Hindu Conference in Trinidad and Tobago in 1992. Why am I sharing this with you? Because I'm no different from you, and you, and you, and you. That's dharma. That's how things happen. And I looked at our vice president and some young face, 36 years. At what age you entered politics? Huh? At 33. So I beat him up by 2 years. So So then came the general elections of 1991, and I was approached by the political party to become a candidate. I don't know what's the experience in your country, but in Trinidad and Tobago then, you had 3 weeks to be nominated and to fight the elections. So I won the seat with the smallest margin in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank God for Google, you can go and find it out. I won with less than 1%. The difference with myself and the other candidate, 1%. So now I'm a member of parliament. Members of parliament in 1991 had no offices. Worked out of our motor cars. We had no support staff, no secretaries, and no fancy this and fancy that. Cell phones was your own, and I still have that phone number, 678 Chan. Elections came 4 years later. Between 91 and 90, next election, I attempted to become a better Hindu. Because what did I have to give the people in opposition? As DDG said, Ravindra. So you didn't have access to government resources. There's a huge margin between a government MP and an opposition MP. The government MP is very visible, the opposition MP is so visible. Next election, I wanted the highest new votes in the whole country, Vice President. I had no resources. You know what I had? Dharma. Powerful Dharma. Best multivitamin C. I give them Dharma morning, noon, and night, every God day, everywhere I went. I visited every single home. In fact, I was termed the WWF champion. For those who look at wrestling, the kind of close. The WWF was weddings, wakes, and funerals. I went to every single one. I believe in the power of engagement and burying. I believe in the power of engagement. That's what Dharma is. Dharma is engaging, exchange of ideas, sharing, and listening. Dharma reminds us of this 2 ears and 1 mouth. Talk less, listen more. That's a beautiful discipline to obtain. So then came 1997. The IU conference in India. Parliamentarians of Indian origin. Excellency, were you in India for that conference? No, 1997, first PIU conference. Parliamentarians of Indian origin. Again, very small number in Delhi. Not many parliamentarians of Indian origin. Perhaps some parliamentarians of Indian origin choosing to become, I'm not sure. And at that conference, Vajpayee was Prime Minister. I know him very clearly. Outstanding gentleman in his devotee. I made a suggestion to the meeting was chaired by Sir Ramesh, who's Speaker of the Mauritius Parliament. Okay? And that's how Pravasi conference came into being. So I'm saying this to us because each one of us can make a huge contribution. We must not fear anything. Do not become too worried if numbers are dropping sometimes and dropping elsewhere and increasing. This dharma does not subscribe to converted. You accept it or you don't. That's the end of it. Others have a different approach. So complexities are really an opportunity to revisit, to re-examine, and to extract from it golden opportunities. religious dynamics. Well, anything that has the word dynamic in it, it suggests an opportunity again. It's explosive. When you look at the Caribbean politics, and where the Hindu majority obtains, not in many countries, but in every Caribbean country is a Hindu presence. In every single one. English speaking and non-English speaking. In every country of the world today, Dharma is playing a very important role. I've been a policymaker for almost 25 years and I still contribute. All policymakers are concerned. We in the Great America, biggest challenge is food security. Do you know why the Great Americas are concerned with food security? They don't have bees. They have to import bees. You know why they don't have bees? And you know what is the answer? To become aware of Dharma. Because in Hindu Dharma, we do puja, we offer flowers. We plant more flowers, you would certainly get more bees. They said if there's going to be a third world war, it's going to be over drinking water. Our Dharma worships water. We worship the seas and the rivers, and today is a big global concern. What plastics being thrown into the rivers and so on. When we sit down to do puja, we use a bedi or vedi made of earth. We worship the earth, Dharma. So we are destroying the earth. We know the power of Agni, Dharma. The huge concern in many major cities of the world is family life, teenage pregnancy, drug abuse, street children, the list goes on. Hindu Dharma talks about family worship. When I do your arati as an elder, I do your arati as a mother, your arati as a big sister. Raksha Bandhan celebrated 10 days ago. Global, any major city you went to, Raksha is celebrated. Every major city. So for us, as practitioners of the Dharma, there are numerous opportunities. One, we must not spend energy. Indian people, Hindu people, all people are known to save money. So you don't bad spend. We go and we see pants for divide for 500, we go in the other section where it's $50 for the front line. We must do similarly in Dharma. We need to invest in ourselves. Last few days, there's so much of awareness of Swami Ji of 1893. But all the kids in America and Canada, the Caribbean and elsewhere, they know of others who have made contribution. Nelson Mandela. I was privileged to be an observer at his elections. They know of Martin Luther King. They know of Mahatma Gandhi. How many know of Swamiji of 1893? And whose fault it is? You go in any store, there are all kinds of things installed on your wall with the messages. You don't see Swami message over there. But we are the buyers, we are the consumers. We could demand what we want to sell ourselves, or we should start marketing it as well. So our Dharma has huge opportunities. When we engage Dharma, challenges will be reduced, so will be complexities in all similar situations. I pray that each one of us will truly reflect. And when you look at the topics chosen for the conference, it's all about Dharma. Maybe subscribe to them. The first is Hindu economic, take care of each other. Hindu economic is not just working for money. You can't understand how much sugar you use, how much dairy you drink, how much time you spend on the video and the internet. Educational conference. Education is not only acquiring degrees, it is dharma, how to live. Media. You buy the newspapers, somebody made reference to the newspapers. You have to get the newspapers to agree to write articles that are relevant. And the others, you have it there. And the last week's poster, we need to paint good pictures of ourselves. I trust that we paint beautiful pictures. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We would like to now have Q&A interaction from our audience. We have mics that will be given out, and we'll ask our chairperson to pick on the questions from the audience. And I'm sure there were many.
Yeah. My name is Sanjeev Tripathi and I came from Boston. My question is, in politics, the goal should be to become a good leader or good worker, political worker. And what's the percent, the people to follow it?
Are you asking someone specific or just general kind?
The question again, to be specific, more specific, was?
In politics, a lot more people, they try to become good leader rather than become a good worker. If you have become good worker, automatically you become a good leader.
ये तो हमारे संघ का सोच है ना। हमारी शाखाएं में जब ये तो अनुशासन है, तो हम शाखा में सीखते हैं। स्वयं सेवक बनने से तो सभी काम करना है। You have to be able to lead, you must be able to follow, just like you said. Then you learn all the levels of the work. That is our Sangha Soch. But then again, in politics it doesn't work that way. We see a lot of people coming out after they've finished some degree, or even not even that, coming into parliament, not willing to experience, like we said in our democratic view, how our people think, the challenges in the community. And being a good worker means having very good contact till the grassroots level. So in my sense and my view, this is something we very cherish in our ideological, at least the political party where I come from. It's more at the grassroots with the people to be able to know what the challenges are, what the heartfelt problems are for the people in order to be able to lead them in the sense that you've done in specifically social work and those kind of seva work, and then take lead if the opportunity is there for you. That's our view.
I would add to this that this is exactly how we can change politics in the new societies that we are in. If we begin to practice these precepts, I remember this young man as a young man who came to do Shaka in Guyana from Suriname, right? I was in Gachala, and he went on because he was a young boy who came over to do Shaka, to train with Guyanese and work his way up, but he learned those skills that you have to follow before you want to lead. And I must say, I also saw him in Delhi in 2014, and I was so impressed by his development, but by his commitment to what he learned in Shaka. And that is, it comes back to what this is all about, that to become a leader, the sanskars of leadership must be imbibed not through words. The West talks of knowledge, that you listen, shravan, you meditate, you cogitate, manan. But our way is that it must go a third step, then it becomes knowledge. The West leaves it up to here, the head. But we say nididhyasan, unless you put it into action, you don't really know. And that's what we teach in Sangha, that he has to learn but put it into action. Then leaders.
Hello, my name is Prahlad Misra. I was born in Bhutan. I was 7 years old when I became a refugee under religious persecution. So I want just to inform you all that like Hindus are refugees, as Anupam Kher indicated this morning that he was 19 years old. Then I was 7 years old when I became refugee. And I want to come forward to my question now to those are from like who are not from India and like living in Caribbean and other countries. And my fear is like when you come into minority one day, how likelihood is there you think yourself to be like evicted of the country? Not like in this world, it's not possible to send you like straight away, or economically like prosecuting, or there are different ways like the government can prosecute people in like this country. So have you ever like think of that way or like experience those things and outside India?
So thank you for that comment. May I just ask, what is your status? You are a refugee, but are you recognized, and do you have citizenship now?
I spent over 20 years in refugee camp.
Yes.
We applied for third country settlement, and it's a mass migration. Over 100,000 of us Bhutanese are resettled here in the United States. I'm a U.S. citizen.
So you have citizenship.
Yeah, since 2014.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarity. Now, South Africa has been in the news recently because of xenophobia. South Africa is a receiving country of refugees, and mainly political refugees and economic refugees. Politically from Somalia, and at one stage from Zimbabwe, but now hopefully Zimbabwe is settled. And it's a problem, it's a dilemma for the South African government, because refugees, we have hundreds of thousands, and they cross the border, in the morning, do their business with us, to the point where even persons living in Swaziland, you just have to cross the border in the morning, and some of them have also in possession of fraudulent South African documentation. So on pension day, they cross the border, pick up their pension, do their shopping, and they go back. The xenophobic attacks are on the increase, especially with the Somalians, because now the African people in South Africa are of the opinion that refugees are taking their jobs from them. And most of the Somalians run little spaza shops, little businesses in the township. So the past week, there has been violence. 2 people were murdered, the houses were burnt down, and they put it down to the fact that no, the Somalians are selling expired foods in the spaza shop. Yet, when you burn the house down, or burn the shop down, or rob the shop, you're taking all those things and you're running back to your house or your little John Doe with it. So that's not the real reason. So we're very aware that xenophobia is prevalent in our country, and I wouldn't say the justice system is failing it, but it's the criminal element that is fueling it. And the best solution is to legitimize their stay in our country, whether it be by Section 22 refugee permit or to give them residence or work visas. Thank you.
If I might, one answer to this question, because this is an endemic issue wherever Indians were taken out of India by the British, whether it be in South Africa, Guyana, Trinidad, Suriname. In Suriname, when they were about to get independence, 100,000 Indians left for Netherlands. They feared what would happen. In my country, as I said, from 1980, from 51%, it is now down to 40%. Fiji is the same thing. They fled to Vancouver and to Haiti. Trinidad, the politics was not so extreme, but you see, this is something that the Hindu conference has to address. But when we are sent into these countries, the individuals who are there see themselves with having greater legitimacy to the state. The Fijians, it's an article of faith with them that indigenous Fijians are the real Fijians. In Guyana and in Trinidad, to a lesser extent, but it's there, African Caribbean people feel it's more or less an African country. You are interlopers, you are sojourners. And you yourself get that feeling that you're not really belong, you're not made to feel part of the national fabric. So this is why I'm saying we as Hindus have to begin to share this vision of ours, that we are different. I'm different from the African Caribbean person, but difference should be accommodated. I should respect you, you should respect me. And I do believe this is an opportunity, because this is right now the world in America is facing. It's coming, right? The fire is coming, as Baldwin wrote, the fire next time. That what is coming down is the same animosity between different groups. Who's a real American, who is not? I spent 20 years in America from 1972. There were no Indians from India. I used to walk in New York and they'd point, that's an Indian. They don't know I'm from Guyana. They used to point to me, that's an Indian, because there were very few. We used to go to Columbia University to see the movies. The point is, but as the Indians came in, they became threats. Right here in Jersey City, right in the 80s, they beat Indian women, calling them dog-busters, because they feared your economic progress. Wherever we've gone, our very holding on to our culture is seen as rejecting them. If your very economic success is seen as an indictment, I am the real Fijian, how come I'm not getting up? So the very acts of dharma that makes us successful generate that backlash, and we become refugees. In New York City, there's only over 200,000 people of Guyanese descent. But I don't want to go on, but this is something I want to say this to you. Again, we don't believe in prophets. I want to say that it's going to happen here also, and it's coming.
I would like to request, ask only questions, don't take stories, because if we do, we don't have time. So please limit your questions.
And the other thing we want to find out is, should we continue on, because the next session will start at 4:15, or would you like a 10-minute break? That's something we want to find out. But there are some questions that are there for audience, including I have some too, and I know Mr. Jolly also has a question.
Namaste, Jai Shah, Friends of India Society, UK say. 2015 election in UK, the Hindus voted locally 36 marginal seats which David Cameron won, and Hindus influenced the policy at the time. And this is something we have to follow. How is it happening in any of the countries where you are representing, or anything? Hello? You got the gist of it, yeah? Okay. Hello. 2015 UK elections, the Hindus voted for Conservative Party. There were 36 marginal seats, which brought David Cameron to power, and Hindus influenced that 36 marginal seat. And currently we have got 46, which are marginal, where Hindus are influencing. Is it happening in anywhere other part of it, where youth are coming over, where Hindus can influence a bit more?
The short answer to that, that's a global development. In the UK, in Canada, other countries are seen, because in America is a good example, those who follow American politics. Two groups that influence the election of a president here. One is the American Asian Physician Association, and the second is the American Motel Association. We know their composition. In the elections of Prime Minister Trudeau recently, the Hindu vote and the Indian vote as a bloc played an important role. So those are simply because of migration. If you go regardless of who you are, you obtain papers that qualifies you to vote, you will vote at some point in time. So you'll vote one party at one time, perhaps differently on another occasion. It will be interesting to look at the next US election to determine how the votes go.
Yes.
Very quickly, there's two strategies here because there's two conditions which we in the diaspora should know. There are two conditions, for example, in Africa, where Indians are a tiny minority and they cannot take national power. So in such a situation, again, the strategy that they use will have to be to maximize their vote, and it makes sense as in your case. However, in certain countries, like in Suriname, Guyana, and in Fiji, and in Trinidad, we can take national power. Meaning, so when the two groups or three groups are nearly equal in size, a different political dynamic operates, and it's a thrust of don't split the vote. So if in your community, when you can possibly win, like when I formed a party in my country, I was seen as betraying the Indians by splitting the vote for Indians, even though I was trying to push the Indian party to represent, you know, a bit more fairly. So the strategy will depend on your numbers.
Just to add a little more, in Suriname, for example, there are more parties, not a bilateral, not bilingual or bi-party system. So we have more parties, and of course, like Ravindra said, the population of Hindu Hindustani is not a small community. Percentage-wise, we are the biggest, I think, in Suriname. So it is very easy for Hindustani to vote on a party, or even on, you would say, ethnically. That's what they call it in Suriname. They vote ethnically. But nowadays, that is breaking. There are breakthroughs. There are more politics, more ideology. Still, Hindus and Hindustanis can just vote for a party that represents them better, or people that they think represent them. So that is a little more is easily established for Hindus or Hindustani to come into power.
So in South Africa, we had a situation where we had a party called the Minority Front. We used to call it a one-man party. It was run by the leader, a very flashy personality by the name of Mr. Rajpansi. And this party did manage to get a seat, one seat in the National Assembly and one seat in the provincial legislature and about 2 or 3 councils at local government. However, this party was purely North Indian. And it was job reservation only if you were not Indian, and it died a natural death when the leader died. So we have no time or space for identity politics or ethnic politics. We either decide that we are South Africans and we're going to vote as South Africans, and yes, I'm South African first and then Indian second. I don't have an identity crisis. And I think that's the way to go in the politics that's coming up. Thank you.
I am Satish Joshi, Hindu in Suriname. And I have a specific question to our South African friend. You did mention that one doesn't know how big and how small is the Indian population there, or population of the Indian origin. So what do you think? What is the percentage of that? And what is the total population out of that? That's the one question specific. And second is, do the South African people remember that a man called Mahatma Gandhi did his apprenticeship of Ahimsa in South Africa? Does that help people of Indian origin to take part politically?
Thank you so much for your question. I think we make up about 2% of the population of South Africa. We are in the region, the last census said 54 million South Africans. And of that, I think 1.7 million are Indian. So it's about maybe just about 2%. Oh, absolutely. Mahatma Gandhi is like such an icon in our country. We've dedicated roads and museums and railway stations and you name it. he is remembered in everyday living. I think there's no doubt that we acknowledge the huge debt and the heritage and the part that he played in freeing us as Indian population. Together with the other icon, obviously Nelson Mandela, who himself also pronounced several times how much credit had to go to the Indian community who shielded him when he was on the run, when he was in hiding, when he was in captivity, when he was being arrested. It wasn't white people that gave him a home, it wasn't black people that gave him a home, it was the Indian people that fed him and looked after him and, you know, hid him in their backyards and so on and so forth. So we never forget our debt to those two great icons.
Thank you.
My name, welcome. My name is Rupnarayan Singh. I was born in Trinidad, and I've written a new detailed gospel of perfection. What I'm asking is simple. Our dharma is unconditional love, discipline, and duty. Now, what are the Hindus doing with respect to that? Choosing people who are less selfish and more disciplined to prevent corruption and to prevent the exploitation of the people. That's one thing I want to know, what you politicians are doing about that. Second, duty. Every Hindu, like the Sikhs, like the Zionists, like the Wahhabis, they all join parties. Hindus do not want to join party, they are reluctant. You have to become a member. So what are you doing in your community to engage these two aspects of politics?
Who wants to answer?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this whole story about Indian people, Hindus, not wanting to be a card-carrying member of a political party is one of the greatest frustrations of my life. I cannot get involved in a cultural event because I belong to a political party. Then I'm seen to be signing up members. Or other people can't be seen to be associating with me because I'm with the official opposition. It is a dilemma that faces a new democracy. I think if we progress to the point where we become, in South Africa, a two-party country, then it would be easy. You either put your mark on this side or you put your mark on that side. The current situation is we have about 19 political parties. And the Indian vote, the Hindu vote in particular, is absolutely fickle. You go door to door today, they'll tell you, yes, I'll vote for you. Tomorrow the other party will go, yes, I'll vote for you. The third day the other party will go, yes, I'll vote for you. So all of us are putting yes, 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 no, we're going to win the war. And at the end of the day, it's a lie. So I don't know how one addresses it, but I can just tell you that it is the bane of my life. Being in opposition politics is not easy because we have to hold the government to account. And if you're following South African politics at the moment, being Indian at the moment is really not a good thing because of the Gupta scandal. The Guptas have captured the state. We had a president that was rotten to the core. Loads and loads of money, not only him, his 5 wives, his 6 wives, his sons, grandchildren, everybody was the beneficiary of the Gupta situation. So, being an Indian at the moment in South Africa and in politics, not a very pleasant place to be because, oh, I'm an Indian, you know, you got the money, then you're going to be corrupt. So, being in opposition politics is wonderful because we can hold these corrupt politicians to account. And at the present moment, the way the new president, I don't know, they say new broom sweep clean, and I have a vote of confidence in him, but at the rate he's now setting up this commission, that commission, uncovering this and firing people, I think there will come a day in South Africa when we can honestly say politicians are not corrupt, but not right now.
Dear leaders, this is the last question. So, Quick one, Mr. Jolly.
So my name is Vijay Jolly. I'm a former state lawmaker from the capital, from Bharat, from New Delhi. Mine is not a question, and neither do I solicit an answer. While sitting in this hall, listening to this esteemed panel, I was constrained to ask my fellow friends and colleagues. I asked Jagdish, how many kids do you have? He said 2. I asked Rajni Sareen, my former colleague in the overseas friends of BJP from India. She said 2. I asked Mr. Patel sitting on my right. He said 2. I asked this photographer Hindu from United States of America. He said 2. I asked you, sir, how many did you say? I forgot. 2. Sir, you have 2. I have 2. But the need of the hour is the dwindling numbers, which happened in Fiji, which happened in Trinidad, which is happening all over the globe. Since I have been visiting the globe for the last 32 years, I have never heard the Hindu population multiplying in double numbers, whereas the friends and the colleagues from the other religions have been multiplying and doubling. This World Hindu Democratic Forum will only survive when the message from this forum, which is the political leaders, and the forum which we heard today morning, the spiritual forum, comes to the present global Hindus. Ab do hamare do nahi. Now, not we and our 2. Ab hum do nahi. Ab hum do hamare 4. Only then this world of Hindu